You are now listening to the Daughter to Daughter podcast with your host, Shaniqua King, where we heal from trauma in the presence of God. Join me as we embark on a healing journey that encompasses the spiritual, mental, and emotional work necessary to overcome past trauma in the presence of our Father, learning to lay it down at His feet and in turn receive restoration, wholeness, and healing. When you know whose you are, you know who you are, and you know what you have. Welcome back to another episode of the Daughter to Daughter podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how seeing is deceiving. You cannot believe everything that you see. You cannot believe everything that you see. Seeing is deceiving. And so I want to start with a little story time. So this morning I went to the grocery store, right? And we pulled into the grocery store. And as soon as we pulled in, it's like the block was hot. And I'm looking around like, why is there so many cars in the parking lot? Like, what is going on? What day is it? Is it the first of the month? Like, because the first of the month come around, everybody's in the grocery store. So I'm like, what day is it? Why is there so many cars? There was mad cars in the parking lot. And so I was really debating if we should leave or not. And I pulled into a spot and then I pulled out. And then I was like, okay, well, and I pulled right back in. And I sat there for a few seconds. I'm like, okay. And I pulled out. And then I'm like, all right, Shaniqua, get it together. Just you have to make a decision. Are you going to go into the store or not? And so I pulled back into a spot, a permanent spot. And I said, okay, Lord, you're going to have to work this out. Okay. And I got out the car, got the stroller and everything, ready. And we're on our way in and we get into the store and it's nothing like it looks outside. Like the block was hot outside. There's so many cars in the parking lot, but on the inside, it does not match. On the inside of the store, it did not match what I saw in the parking lot. And I was pleasantly surprised, but I was also shocked. Like, where are all the people? Where are all the people that, like, whose cars are these then? Like, why is there so many cars outside? But how come it doesn't match what I'm seeing inside? Not that it was like a ghost town, because there were people in there, but it did not match the amount of cars that I saw in the parking lot. And so let me just continue. So we're getting our groceries and stuff, and then we're headed for the checkout line, right? And there, across from the checkout line, there's like a freezer section. So it's pretty close. And I look over and I'm like, there's one more thing that I want to get. And then I was debating whether or not double-mindedness, just like I was in the parking lot, being double-minded. And so I'm by the line and I'm like, okay. I was debating if I wanted to just run and get the thing that I wanted out the freezer section, or was I just going to be like, okay, forget it. It's okay. Let me just get in this line before anybody else, because there was nobody in line. We got to the line and there was nobody else in this line. And so I'm looking around like, okay, there's a woman with a cart coming and she's like, she's going slow. She's browsing and stuff. I'm like, okay, maybe I got time. So I go over to the freezer section and I get the thing that I wanted and I get back in line and there's nobody still. And so it's just me. And I'm like, this is lovely. The moment I begin to put my stuff on the belt, a line starts to form. And I'm just like, wow. And so we finish our checkout. We pack up and we're on our way out. And we get into the car. And I'm just like, wow, God, I cannot go by. Listen to me. I cannot go by what I see in this season, because seeing is deceiving. You, daughter of God, cannot go by what you see in this season, because seeing is deceiving. It's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. I know it looks one way. I know your eyes are seeing one thing, but it's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. I know the parking lot is hot. It looks like there's a lot of cars in the parking lot, but it's not what it looks like. You cannot judge based on what you see. You can't make decisions based on what you see, because what you see changes. And so you cannot make a permanent, what did we just say? What was I talking about in a few episodes ago? I said, you can't make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. In that same vein, you cannot make decisions, permanent or not, based on what you see. Because what you see is not permanent. What you see is not permanent. And so I'm in the car and the Lord is just like, it was such a valuable reminder and a on-time reminder for me, especially for me. Like, it was for me. I know it's for some of y'all, but it was for me first. And the Lord was really reminding me in that moment, daughter, stop focusing on what you can see with your eyes. Daughter, it's not what it looks like. I know it's sounding this way. I know it's looking this way. I know it's looking a little tight right now. I know it's looking a little scarce right now, but it's not what it looks like. Do not focus on what you see. Do not hold too tightly on what you can see. Do not hold too tightly on what you can see. But fix your eyes on that which you cannot see, which is the Lord. And so, oh my goodness, that's my story time. That's my story time. And so I say to you guys, do not be deceived by what you can see or can't see, because it's not what it looks like. You have to ask the Lord, show me what's really going on. Show me. Oh my goodness. Wow. This is another good example. Before we even left the house, we were leaving out of the house and I was getting my daughter ready and I'm like, okay, let's go. Bye-bye. And she's like, okay, bye-bye. And she grabs her coat and I'm like, hold on. We got to put your sock. We got to go in order. Socks, shoes, hat, coat. And we do that. She walks to the door and she's waiting and she's like, go. And she only does that when she sees a gnat or a fly or a bug or something. She's swatting it. She's like, go, get out. And I'm like, what do you see, Bug? Her nickname is Buggy, love Bug, Buggy. And so I said, what do you see, Buggy? And I have a habit of asking her this because I know she be seeing in the spirit. I know she be seeing things. And so I have made it a habit of asking her, what do you see? Even if she can't articulate it, I get into the habit. What do you see? And so I said, what do you see, Buggy? And she's like, go, get out. And I pick her up and we walk out the door. Wouldn't you know, there was a fly on the other side, flying, trying to get inside. Y'all, I was like, if this girl can't, if I doubted for any moment that this girl could see in the spirit, I do not doubt anymore. Because, what? That's crazy. That's crazy. And I was just like, wow. So, that also is a testament to, it's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. She was saying, go, get out. And I know she only does that when she sees a fly, a gnat, or an insect of some sort. And I didn't see any. On the same side that we were on. We were inside the house. I didn't see any. As soon as we went out into the hallway, we didn't even get outside yet, but we were in the hallway. in the stairwell. We were in the stairwell. We live on the second floor. We were in the stairwell. We open up the door. I open the door and I see the fly. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. And so I just wanted to give those quick little story times. But you can't rely on your physical sight in this season. Ask the Lord for spiritual sight. Ask the Lord to sharpen your spiritual eyesight. Let nothing fly under your prophetic radar in this season, because God is going to be showing us some things and we can't afford to miss it. We cannot afford to miss it because we're looking with the wrong lenses. Do not be deceived by what you see or don't see. Now, I want to, because you know me, get your Bibles out. So I want to go to a few scriptures, or even just mention, even if we don't go to them on your own. But I want to mention a few scriptures. Imagine David, King David, before he was king, when he was still a teenager. Imagine he allowed what he saw. Imagine he allowed what he saw to make him turn the other way. I was about to allow what I saw to make me turn the other way this morning at the grocery store in the parking lot. Because I saw a packed parking lot, I was getting ready to turn. I did a few times in the parking lot. I bust some U's in the parking lot a couple times. I was getting ready to turn around because of what I saw. Imagine David turn the other way because he saw a giant, because he saw Goliath, and he allowed what he saw to make him turn back the other way. Now the Israelites in the wilderness, they were ready to turn back. But it's so funny. God intentionally took them a different way. He could have led them a quicker way, but he intentionally took them the long way around because he knew. Hold on, let me just find it. Okay, so it's Exodus chapter 13, verse 17. And it says, "Then it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt." Lest the people change their minds when they see war. I was literally, this morning, I was literally getting ready to change my mind when I saw the parking lot, when I saw what I was potentially up against. And I wasn't trying to be in a packed out store and a long line. And okay, that was also a lesson of patience as well. See, God be really gathering me, y'all. And so imagine that. God said, I did not bring them this way for a reason, because I knew that if they saw war, they would change their mind and return to Egypt. They would go back. How many of you have changed your minds because of what you saw? Because it didn't turn out the way you expected it. Because it didn't look like what you expected it to look like. How many of you, daughters of God, turned back from the promise because it did not look the way you expected it to look? How many of you have rejected that thing that God has spoken because it did not look the way you expect it to look? That's why we cannot go by what we see, especially in this season. We can't go by what we see. We can only go by what he said. We can't go by what we see. We can only go by what he said. Because seeing is deceiving. Seeing is deceiving. Imagine Abraham and Sarah went by what they saw. I see that we're old, so we're not even going to try. Yeah, I heard you. I heard the promise that you just spoke over me, that you're going to make me a father of many nations. But what I see is not looking like it. It's not looking like it. And it's not like Sarah immediately got pregnant. There was a waiting period. There was a waiting period that they had to go through. And in that time, they went ahead of God, and Abraham slept with his maidservant and got her pregnant. And they had a son. And so essentially, even with that action, they were relying on what they did not see yet. They did not see the promise come to pass yet. So they went ahead of God. And they made a decision based on what they didn't see yet. If God spoke something over you, it does not mean, just because you don't see it, it does not mean that he's a liar. It does not mean that it won't come to pass. You have to add a yet to that. God, I know that you said this. And even though I don't see it yet, I'm still believing you for it. I'll give you guys another personal example. My husband and I were trying to conceive for a while, and then we gave it to God, like, all right, Lord, you guys can listen to our entire testimony. It's a 3-part testimony on how we had a supernatural vaginal home birth, unassisted, Holy Spirit assisted. You guys can listen to our entire 3-part testimony on our podcast called Off the Beaten Path. And you can, find that everywhere you listen to podcasts. But when we were trying to conceive, we just had to surrender it. We had to surrender it to God. And when we did surrender it to God, this was 2022 when we surrendered it to God. And in May of 2022, we both got baptized, water baptized. And upon our baptism, we received a word of the Lord, which he said, I have a daughter for you. I have a daughter for you. And that was confirmation, because we were praying. And then we had surrendered it, like, okay, Lord, this is what we want. And God knew the desires of my heart. God knew that I wanted a daughter. And because of that word we received in May, in June, we got pregnant. I got pregnant, and then I found out in July. But up until then, I think before this, let me backtrack. I think before this, I want to say March or April, I bought a little pink onesie in faith. I bought a little pink onesie in faith in March or April of 2022. May, that is when we received the word of the Lord upon our baptism, and God saying, I have a daughter for you. And so that was personal confirmation for me, because I had just bought the little pink onesie in faith by myself. I went to the store by myself. I didn't tell my husband, because I wanted it to be a surprise. When we did get pregnant and found out that it was a girl, when we did get pregnant, I wanted to surprise him with a little pink onesie. And so I just knew in my heart that God was going to give me a daughter. And so he had confirmed it. I say all that to say, month by month, my period would come, and I'm like, all right, well, Lord, I'm not going to go on what I see, because what I see right now is a period. But this is what I'm believing you for. And so even when we received the word, when God said, I have a daughter for you, my period still came after that. And I had to declare, Lord, you said you have a daughter for me. Lord, you said you have a daughter for me. So I'm not going to go by what I see right now. You said you have a daughter for me and you are not a liar. So I'm going to go with what you said. I'm going to go with what you said. And then after that, I had got pregnant. And so imagine that. Imagine I went off of what I saw and gave up trying to conceive. We wouldn't have our daughter at the time that, we have her now. Eventually, we would have had her. But if I gave up because of what I saw or didn't see, then I would have delayed the promise. I would have delayed the promise. And so now I want you guys to ask yourself, is there a delay? Is there a delay? And are you the problem? Are you the reason for the delay? Is there a delay in what God spoke over you? And are you the reason for the delay? Because you won't act on what God told you. Because maybe fear, disappointment, past hurts. You're bringing up old stuff. Old stuff is still in your heart that is keeping you from acting on the promise. And so even though God said, I have a daughter for you, we had to do our part. Okay? As a married people, we had to do our part. And so we couldn't just, obviously nothing is too hard for God because he could have did me like he did Mary. Okay? But we had to do our part. And speaking of, she must have knew that I was talking about her because she just woke up. So I'm going to wrap this up. Long story short, you cannot go by what you see in this season, especially. You have to hold on to what he said. You have to hold on to the word of God. Because what you see is deceiving. It's not what it looks like. I want you to go throughout this week, this weekend, the rest of this month, the rest of this year. If you are still waiting for a promise to come to pass, if God said that he's going to do something, look, the year is not up yet. The year is not up yet. Do not count this year out just yet. And I want you to hold on to this. It's not what it looks like. Yeah, I see this. I see that. It's not what it looks like. I'm not going to go by what I see. Nope. I'm not going to be swayed by what I see. Nope. Nope. It's not what it looks like. 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 You have to repeat that to yourself. Whenever what you see does not align with what God said, it's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like, because seeing is deceiving. And so that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Daughter to Daughter podcast. And I will see you guys in the next episode.